It's the Behind the Shade show.
2020, 2021, in many places across the world, COVID hit.
Right.
We're in lockdown. Many of us were isolated not by choice, just because of regulations. And regardless if you agree with it or not, we all had to keep to ourselves.
Right. Right.
Fast forward a couple years now, mental health is on everyone's radar. Rightfully so. There's more conversations. But some people are still being impacted by the isolation because the conditioning of 2 years to
Hmm.
be away from people and to keep to yourself and not interact was quite fierce for
It
some
was
people, right?
terrible, right? And I think it's had a huge impact on the child population. Think of it, right? I'm a little kid, right? Let's put me in kindergarten or first grade. I, in a normal environment, am constantly bumping in to other kids my age, right? Both physically, emotionally, socially, and that's feeding me. It's nurturing me to have connections with others. Some of those kids in kindergarten I like, some of them I don't like, but all of those relationships are powerful and important. So you take a kindergartner and they're isolated so that they don't have interactions for 2 years with other kids their age, that changes who they are. All right. So every child who had to stay home and only interact with their family has been emotionally impacted by COVID. We are not close to being finished with the impact of COVID on our families, our schools, our communities, the country as a whole. That isolation has a long-term consequence to it, right? It has a tail. You don't just immediately go, oh, yay, right? Now I can go back into a school building or now I can go back into the office. The other thing that has happened for adults is so many of them have not returned to an office, right? Office buildings are standing empty. People are working on their computers from home. We're increasing isolation for our adults, and that definitely has an impact on the adult population. There are more adults, men in particular, with presenting depression than there used to be because they're spending 8 to 10 hours at home by themselves interacting with their computer, right? Nothing could be more frustrating or irritating than interacting with that machine for 8 hours a day. And we don't offer other options at this point. So it's like a tsunami. All right, it starts way out in the ocean with some movement, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think we're going to see COVID as the beginning of some kind of a social tsunami that will overwhelm us with the consequences for the child and the adult population.
Here in Canada, you mentioned the isolation. When we were in lockdown, what they did to maybe help the interaction through the screen was they gave you access to premium content that maybe you couldn't get. So let's say, for example, Netflix, Disney Plus, but a big one, and this I would assume impacted men a little bit more than women, was that they gave you premium access to pornography. So now the men were not only interacting with their computer screen for their job, they're
Mm.
interacting through the computer screen for other things because maybe they couldn't get that if they
Right.
were to go out and interact with the public. When we were in this different social setting and you
Mm.
highlighted some of the impacts, what did you notice that maybe is still impacting men and women today from being able to have a healthy social interaction, especially in their relationships?
When we think of social interaction, we typically think of one person facing, chatting, or maybe going for a walk with, right? We think of real connection. But I will tell you, right, if you just go visit a school or a mall and watch the interaction between our adolescents, you will discover that they are not interacting with each other. They're sitting next to each other on a bench in the mall with their phones in their lap and they're typing away like crazy. Do you know who they're talking to?
I do.
They're
Or
talking to the person sitting next to them, who is also madly typing away on their phone, right? More than 90% of communication takes place non-verbally. They're missing all of that. Absolutely all of that, right? They're getting the language in text form, but they're missing all of the information in the body posture, the facial expression, the color, the tone. That has a powerful impact on how I take in information from another human being. All of that is gone for our adolescents. So you think about put that adolescent 10 years forward, right? Mother, father interacting with a child, they have missed all of the training about really picking up on cues that are nonverbal from their child. So we've got this tsunami going, right? Big, strong isolation is what we are training in our adolescence right now. And that's not going to work out well for us in the long run.
I can see the impact it has on young adults, right? As adolescents, so it's like teenagers or even younger,
Hmm.
because there's a portion of their life that's being impacted, right? The adults now, I see the impact that they're experiencing. One of my neighbors, his uncle, had his first birthday party after everyone was after lockdown 2022,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
A couple months, and he was very uncomfortable. This was someone that was very socially healthy prior.
Hmm.
A couple months after that birthday, he committed suicide.
That's
He felt that
right.
he just couldn't continue anymore, right? And
Hmm.
the question I have, not to be insensitive because
Right.
everyone gets impacted differently, but for those who have gone so many years having healthy social interactions, what do you think are in general some of the reasons why even them fall, let's say, into the rut of social awkwardness or missing out on 90% of the cues, like you mentioned, which are nonverbal?
Right. It is the fact that I can't see a future, right? The thing that stops me from continuing to engage those around me and to be productive member of my community or my family is I cannot see a future. And if I look and find nothing that is attractive, or if it's just blank or dark, then I am trapped, right? And if the people around me cannot read those signals, and so often that is the case, that the people around the person who ends up committing suicide just didn't read the signals, could not see any change, any shift that was happening for that person, or discounted the changes and shifts that they did see. So we've had some recent losses of people who have been, brilliant researchers and just saw no future for themselves, even though the work that they were doing was highly productive. Um, you could have a neighbor in exactly that same circumstance, right? Where they've had a recent trauma or a recent loss of some kind, and they've just decided, you know, it's just not worth it. It's too hard to reach out, to engage someone else. And they do end up ending their own lives. It's traumatic. It is on the increase. And I think you can attribute some of that to the isolation that we have come out of, right? People have been impacted by COVID's isolation, and recovery from that isn't just going back into a normal routine. You've been injured. And like any other injury, you don't recover from it by just saying, "Oh, it's over." Right? If I slash your arm, you don't recover just by saying, "Oh, you stopped the knife." So, right? The slash is over. I'm perfectly fine. You really have to take seriously the impact for all of us going through COVID, regardless of what age we were. It still has a lingering impact. So you want to be conscious of the relationships that you value and put some extra energy out there into those relationships so that they get fertilized, they get nurtured, right? They get encouraged, and they get supported. We value support from other people, and it's critical that we're conscious of how important that is in today's world, particularly for men. Right. You mentioned, the access to pornography. That's typically a male activity more than a female activity. And it's isolating.